Person County Board of Commissioners to order at this time. I'll ask, and I want to recognize the fact too that we do have a quorum, so we're in session. Person County Board of Commissioners to order at this time. I'll ask, and we're set. I'll ask Commissioner Sims if he would lead us in an invocation, and Commissioner Perrier to lead our Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings you blessed us with. We ask that you would lead us as we go forth with County Commissioner work today. And Lord, we just lift those up who are going through difficult times. We pray for those who are at war and just pray for peace. We pray for our nation, and we just pray that we will continue to prosper. Lord, we ask that you would be with us when we leave here today and grant us safe travels back to work or home. Thank you again for the many blessings you've given us. These things we pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda would be discussion, adjustment, or approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. At this point in our commissioner meetings, we do have time set aside for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any signed up to speak?
Yes, sir, we do have two individuals signed up.
Okay, and who's first there?
All right, Mr. Amy Correa. Sorry if I don't think of Moss Creek Drive, Roxborough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sir.
I just want to give a brief public comment and suggestion regarding our emergency management procedures here in the county. One of the things that kind of have irked me, and I know a lot of other people over the last couple of years, is the way the state was put under an emergency declaration by the governor, and with seemingly on his own volition and own power without any consultation with the other council state members. And then the fact that he still has us under an emergency order over 2 years later. And the purposes have been, according to the governor, in order to keep pulling money down from the federal government. And now it is, he's using it to coerce legislation that he wants out of the General Assembly. So I'm on my walks, I've been trying to lose some weight here lately. I'm on one of my walks at the Huck Sansbury Park. I noticed a little sign on the bulletin board that said, as of March 1, masks in county buildings are optional. Well, then that got me going back to looking at the county website and looking a little harder at our emergency order and why it's still in place. Thank you for rescinding that. And then and then the amendment to the emergency order. There was one amendment in 2 years. And so I looked at the amendment and I see where there was an emergency loan program set up, which, I've got no problem with emergency business loans. The general statutes 158 clearly states that it can be done, lays it out how it should be done, public hearings, and the whole 9 yards. But one of the things that's irked me, and probably a lot of other citizens in North Carolina, is how the Emergency Management Act has seemingly been stretched to include almost anything a government official wants to do. And that bothers me, and especially when it goes on for 2 years. So what I'd like to see or suggest is that the Emergency Management Act doesn't really clarify real well the difference between tornadoes ripping through a county versus a virus ripping through a county. And when an emergency declaration is given outside of a public meeting, like ours was here in Person County, that it gets reviewed by the full board in public within 3 to 7 days. Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, you issued this order. Let's tell the public why, instead of just posting it on the website and having news articles written about it. And then maybe put a sunset on it, or at least a review date every 30 days. So when I go back to this loan program, I looked at the emergency management amendment or declaration amendment that was issued on April 7 of 2020. And I looked at the three pillars, the basis for the order, and they were the Emergency Management Act, Chapter 166A, the county's Emergency Management Ordinance, and then Chapter 153A of the General Statutes. If I'm not mistaken, that kind of describes how a county is structured and how it runs. I believe that's right. And but none of those three items actually spells out and expressly says that a county can do bridge loans. It talks about economic assistance, other stuff, but not bridge loans, because it's 158 that talks about bridge loans. So I don't know. I have an issue with an emergency management order and amendment that stretches just because it's not expressly in there, therefore it's okay. I'm not about that. I went back and looked, and where would Chairman Jeffers have gotten this idea? And so I realized he was chair of the Association of County Commissioners, or the president. So I went and looked at the website, and sure enough, under COVID resources, I found Person County, Buncombe County, and Orange County listed as counties that had emergency bridge loan programs. And there were 2 links out beside it that if you wanted to learn how to do this for your county, go watch this video and go read this blog post. Both videos were done by the School of Government. Tyler Mulligan wrote the blog post in March of 2020. And then he was part of the presentation, which was a office hours call by the School of Government on April 1. And then I found out that that the previous county attorney and the EDC director were both on that call. So they were in that, they listened, they heard that video, and or the presentation, and that video is still up for everybody to see. And I watched the video twice, and I read the blog post twice. And sure enough, Tyler Mulligan said that, if you feel like you have to do this under Emergency Management Act, okay, I can understand it, he said, because it's hard to have public hearings under COVID in April of 2020. He said, however, he gave 2 statutes actually that he listed. But in the presentation, one of the slides in the presentation, and Mulligan said this, and he said it in his blog post pretty clearly, that there's nothing in the Emergency Management Act that said you can't do it, but there's no case law on it. Some people have described that as perfectly legal. Yeah, I wouldn't characterize it as that, but at any rate, but on the slide in the presentation, he has a big question mark by it. But he also says that there is such a thing called the Local Development Act of 1925, and it was amended in 2015, General Statute 158. That clearly lays out how a county can do these bridge loans. And that includes public hearings, by the way. But it wasn't done. He said, if you do start the program under the Emergency Management Act, get to Chapter 158 as soon as you can. Issue it under emergency management, and then have public hearings as soon as you can, and put it under Chapter 158. So the fact that 158 was never mentioned as authority to do the bridge loans kind of bugged me. And I think if you have a review process involved for your emergency management declarations, first of all, you'd be one of the, maybe the only county in the state that does it. But secondly, it brings a little bit about transparency for the public about your declarations instead of just links on a website. And then you also might catch some issues, like this loan program pretty much in effect was shut down by May of 2020 because of the PPP programs and lack of applications. I'm not going to get into the applications themselves and the process. I have some questions about that still, but I think if we put reviews in place of our declarations, it brings about more transparency for the public, better trust, and so people aren't home thinking, well, they're just doing this because they want to control us. And it will, if there's mistakes that were made or things that need to be fixed, that can be done in those review times. You'll catch them, and you won't have, something won't come up 2 years later and go, and people go, I didn't know this. When I put a FOIA in and I asked for communications from the county commissioners and the manager and EDC director from that time period involving these loans. And I didn't get, I thought there were 3 commissioners on this board that were on the board in April. I got two email packets from 2 of the commissioners. None of them were from 2020. So, and I looked at all the emails to and from EDC that were sent out about the program, and they were sent to the chair, who's a non-voting member of the commission, and it was sent to other members of the commission, and it was sent to people like Uptown Group, and there's communication with the mayor. I didn't see any communication with individual commissioners. And, I don't want to get into that necessarily today, but I just want to present the idea of putting some time frames in your emergency powers. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I did fail to say that we had 10 minutes and we have 2 speakers. That's my fault, my problem, but I think Mr. Seep is second. So Mr. Seep, if you'll come and address the board, please.
Gladly. That was well stated. Appreciate the patience that you had, and you had apparent understanding of the importance of what the last citizen brought to you. He used a couple of words that I'm sensitive to. I think most citizens of the county are. That would be transparency. He also mentioned the School of Governance. So I want to bring up something. I want to ask a direct question. I don't want to file a Freedom of Information or public records request at the end of the day. So I'm going to leave it up to you to answer before the public what I'm about to bring up. If not, expect to see a public records request from me by the end of the day. 3 months ago, somebody within the government of Person County felt it was of importance to bring somebody in by the name of Peg Carlson. She's the director of the School of Government at UNC. She's a facilitator, a trainer, a coach, a consultant. She's got expertise besides having a PhD from the University of Michigan in board development, governance, collaboration in groups, leadership development, organizational change, public management, strategic planning and visioning, goes on. She seems like quite a talented person to grace this organization's time. So I understand sometime in the month of January, mid-January, she engaged the group. I'd like to know the scope in which she was brought in, but I understand she spoke to maybe all of you individually or in groups. I understand, based on what I know, that she invested about 1 day in the county and it went away. Nothing became of it. I don't know if it's because she threw her hands up because of the Hatfields and McCoy's behavior that we've seen and witnessed over the last couple of years. But I think the citizens of Person County would like to know what the scope of that was. There was probably a contract written, how much of that got paid out, if that was done as a courtesy because of a relationship. I'd like to know about that relationship. I think it was a good idea. It'd be too bad if somebody with her expertise threw her hands up and said, this box of rocks is something I can't help with, and it's going to require an election. This was 3 months ago, and we're a couple of weeks away from one of those, and the people will speak. But I'd like to have a little transparency on that. Most people don't know. I don't read the Courier Times, so I don't know if it's been in there. I highly doubt it. Maybe it'll be a public records request to get whatever information I can, and I'll publish it on Person County Local. But I think the citizens deserve better than what we've seen. There's been a lot of bullying. I've seen things like Commissioner PJ Gentry do her best to ask questions, do her due diligence to review solar farms, and do a task force for the EDC. And I've seen some really horrendous treatment of her and others. You may have forgotten, but the citizens of Person County hasn't. A year ago today, Commissioner Sims, you put forward recommendation to get rid of another lovely lady of the county who was asking questions that made people uncomfortable on the EDC, who's now running against Kyle Purrier and I guess PJ Gentry for a seat at the table because she believes that the county deserves it and she wants to do the work. As a citizen of the county, sometimes it doesn't appear that you guys understand that you work for us at our pleasure, not your own. So I'm here to remind you of that, to ask you about Peg Carlson, to find out what all that activity was, what the summary was. She was in the county to do something, even if it was a courtesy. I'd like to know about it. If it was put forward by somebody outside the board, such as you, Mr. Ellis, or Heidi. In closing comments, you guys have no problem injecting your thoughts. So maybe when the commissioner's done, you may want to inject those thoughts. But if I watch the video later and I don't see clarity on this, I will submit a public records request. We do need a change. I hope people get out and vote, but I'd like to know what that was about and what the summary was when she departed our county. Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is item number 1, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Approval.
Have a motion on the floor to approve. Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. On the item number C3, the PATS policy, I had a question on page 44 about, was that the total funds? Yeah, go ahead, come on up.
So the reference from that were the funds that were received through NCDOT over the past year.
So the total on page 44, 45,
Right.
that was the total, okay. That's just NCDOT, I just wanted to confirm, okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Old business, item number 2, comprehensive backup solution and security appliance Chris per year.
Good morning again,
Good
Commissioners.
morning.
We have completed the 10-day notice period as required by general statute for the piggyback requirement to acquire the rubric solution through Tego Data. And we are requesting this morning that you move forward, authorizing the county manager to sign and execute any documents required for the comprehensive backup solution and security appliance purchase.
Presentation last time, so I'm very satisfied. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You won't get overtime.
Not a problem, not expected.
Very good. And I hope that's a solution that will work going forward. We never know what and how the hackers will do, but I think you're doing a good job, and this is a good proposal, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments, commissioners? You're none. I'm sorry.
But I'm curious what was going on last week. Is that appropriate at this time?
I'm not sure what you're referencing.
When they shut down?
Oh,
you had to do
that
some
was totally something else.
reconfiguring and
So we
had
had
some
a,
problems, I believe.
yeah, we had a piece of hardware that actually failed,
Mhm.
that was basically at the end of its life cycle. But some fans failed, it overheated. We ended up having to replace that piece of hardware on a Tuesday afternoon, I believe. And we did have some issues with that the previous week with a power cycle that brought it back. However, that did not bring it back fully as much as we had anticipated. So there was some corruption within that hardware. We had to completely replace that and put in a new unit there. But we did have a replacement unit on hand to put in place for that.
That was done in a 2-day time cycle, correct?
I believe.
One was at night and one was during the day, I believe.
Yes, sir. One actually happened during the day during a power event. The other was a controlled after hours event. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chris.
Any other questions? What's the pleasure of the board, based on the request?
Make a motion to accept and approve.
We have a motion to approve the request as presented. Any further discussion?
Chairman, to clarify that,
Yes,
that I
sir.
believe is a motion to authorize the county manager to sign the agreements required to complete this transaction.
Yes, sir. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, none, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is recommended capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023 through 2027. Manager York Weinberg.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have your 5-year capital improvement plan before you today for adoption. It was presented to you at your April 4th meeting, and we're asking for approval of this or any adjustments or revisions that you would like to make. Just as a reminder, you're allocating funding for the upcoming fiscal year 1 year at a time, although the plan spans 5 years. Your recommended funding amount for fiscal year 23 is $6,078,133. And of this amount, 3.3 million would come from your county's general fund. The other funding sources are listed at the very top of that spreadsheet that we call your attention to, found on page 11 in the document. Are there any questions about projects or suggestions or changes you'd like to make before adopting?
Some clarifications. So
Sure.
from 2026, we've anticipated, I don't know, 2.4 million totally last year. The first time that we did this program, when we started to implement it, now we're up about 5.5 million on the projects from last year to now. I'm just looking at the previous.
The previous year.
The
So
previous
your
year,
current
so-
year was a little bit lower than this year,
Mhm.
but the general fund is roughly in the same ballpark amount. Last year, we didn't have, or current year, we didn't have any other funding sources contributing besides your general fund.
And a lot of this money is the ARP money. Is a lot of this ARP money?
No. The, if you look at the top, you can see the sources of revenue. So there's general fund. We have a couple of PARTIF grants related to Parks and Rec projects. I have the Republic Services Community Development Project Fund, a capital investment fund balance appropriation, water and sewer reserve fund, and then some stormwater fees. I'm looking
No,
on,
I see where the funding's coming from. I just
Okay.
didn't, I just was clarifying.
Yeah.
Because that was the wish list of $11.6 million of the $7 million.
That's a
that we've
separate
been-
pot.
Yeah, that's a whole
Yeah,
different thing. So I
that's
didn't
right.
know if any was that. I couldn't understand that. So.
Yeah, no,
But
those are
basically,
separate.
we've just added projects from a year ago into the capital improvement.
Right,
That we
so
hadn't
every year,
anticipated before to the tune of like $5.5 million. Okay.
most of these were already on here. As you'll see, we have a 5-year window that we're looking at, so we continue
You're
them
plugging
from
in
year to
as you go.
year.
I just wanted
Yeah.
clarification that I was reading the numbers from last year to this year and saw that increase of the plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. There is one project that I wanted to call the board's attention to. It's on page 11, about halfway down under county projects. And it is an upfit to this auditorium space. If the board desires to continue to use this as a meeting space, this was sort of a temporary COVID meeting place, but we've now been meeting in here for a number of years. And so if you would like to convert this space to a boardroom space, we do have a placeholder for that project in here. But if it's the board's intention to move back up to your boardroom space, then you probably don't need to make this appropriation for this space. So I did want to call that to the board's attention. I wasn't sure if you'd like to remain down here. We would then like to perhaps invest in some more comfortable chairs as well as fix the acoustic system in here. It's not really intended to be a board meeting space. So if you would like to give staff some direction on whether or not that project is to remain, or if you intend to hold your board meetings back up in the boardroom, then we could probably remove that project.
How did the 120,000, how did that figure, how'd you arrive at that? Is that just kind of a basis to start with?
We included in that $120,000 some technology upgrades, some sound equipment, some drop ceiling acoustic adjustments, as well as some chairs and table desk space. I think I'm looking at Ray Fouché from General Services. I think that I captured everything in that quote that we had looked at for that. Nothing major, but
Would it still have to be taken down and installed every meeting, or would it be?
no, this would
permanently?
become a permanent board meeting space if that is what
Okay.
the board
And
desired
I
to
assume
do.
our screening projections and all that's part of the package. Okay.
Yes.
So these are in-house estimates.
We consulted with some contractors to get some solid numbers, but yeah, we would be managing the project in-house.
Okay. And does that include flooring and ceiling? and
It does.
For acoustics,
Yes, it
maybe
does.
a little more into what would be included there, Mr. Fouché?
Ray, do you recall what else we included, or Chris? I don't know if there were specific technology upgrades that we'd like to mention today.
On the technology side, we were looking at projectors, permanently mounting a couple of cameras, and then hardwiring all microphones.
Ray?
Structure side, we were looking at basically building a bench, if you will, something similar to what you have upstairs, or maybe better. Floor to ceiling, maybe doing some work with the air conditioning to quiet it down some, because of the hearing issues that we have, but, and then new equipment, chairs, so forth. That was mostly what we looked at.
Go ahead. Go ahead, that's fine.
Aside from just our county commissioners meeting here,
Mhm.
what other events would this affect if we make these changes?
Sure. Currently, this is a community rental space where various events could be held. It's one of our only large spaces aside from a gym facility. So that would change some of the rentals. It wasn't a significant amount of revenue that would be lost, but you would miss out on that opportunity if this became a permanent boardroom.
I know you said significant amount. Do we have amount of what it has been in the past, roughly?
We
No?
don't have that handy.
Okay.
Do you have a ballpark? I know I looked at it, but I don't recall. No. Revenue for the rental for, it would be in the Parks and Rec budget.
I don't recall it being very substantial.
Under 10,000, under 5, under 5,000.
Okay.
Use the facility for other things like City Hall does now. That City Hall
Yes.
is their meeting area, but they use it for multiple purposes.
Yes, it would still be
You could still
available.
use it and still rent it.
Yes,
Okay.
it just wouldn't be the open space that, it has been used for in the past. It would have permanent seating and desk space. Similar to what you have upstairs
Mhm.
in your boardroom. I mean, you know
So
that we,
For a commissioners meeting, there would be something else.
yes.
Wouldn't be on a stage.
I don't know.
Oh.
We had talked with a couple of contractors about what the options would be for that. I'm not sure what the
Okay.
design would look like at this point.
Any thoughts about security? If we were to meet down here?
Is there something more that you'd like to add
Well,
for
I'm
security?
not sure. We have doors on both sides here.
Right, we have multiple cameras in this room already for
Okay.
security, but if there was something else you'd like to include, we
Oh,
could
no,
certainly.
just that it was
look at
considered,
that.
that's all.
I, for one, would like to leave it in the budget.
Leave
I
it
think
in.
It's a good consideration. I think we've outgrown the space upstairs.
Yeah. Your next 2 meetings in May will be held up in your boardroom. So that'll give you the opportunity to get a feel for what that space and the limitations of accommodating the public look like up there. But for now, we can certainly leave it in. And this is just a plan that can always be adjusted by the board or reviewed at any time. Even the amount of funding can be, adjusted. So we would be asking for a motion to adopt your CIP and allocate the funding proposed for next fiscal year this morning.
But adjustments can be made later.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
It just gives us a placeholder really for your recommended budget in a couple of weeks.
Further comments or discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to accept the capital improvement plan for 2023, 2022, 2023.
Okay, we do have a motion to accept the plan as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Moving along with new business, item number 4, Bio Health Overview and Presentation. Elliot Clark.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Hope everybody's well. Hope everybody had a good Easter. I don't know what happened to the good Easter weather, but it's like it's long gone today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. My name's Elliot Clark. I represent Via Health. We are the local management care organization that provides services and contracts with providers in Person County to serve those with mental health, developmental disability, and substance use disorder services. I have been working in Person County. Via has been live since January. I've been working in another 5-county area for our previous organization that consolidated with Via Health, Cardinal Innovations Healthcare, which some of you may have been familiar with. But I'm relatively new to Person County, so I've been kicking around here for about 6 months, but live and working actively to make sure that services are on a plan of improvement since January. So in front of you today, you have a packet of information that includes an overview, kind of a general presentation of who VIA is, our board structure, how we are advised to serve those citizens with Medicaid in your county. And then we'll get into a little bit more of the specific information and data about some of the contracted services we have in Person County. You'll see a couple of holes in some of that data because In Medicaid, a lot of what you see as far as service provision is on a claims basis. And so when we get into that, just a heads up, you'll see some of the services provided will indicate 0. That's just because we haven't had 90 days worth of claims to clear our system yet. What the desire would be and the intention would be is to come before this board every quarter and present that data so that you guys can be directly informed on how services are looking and what outcomes are taking place. So this being the first intro, you'll see a couple of holes, but those will be filled. And then afterwards, just to also provide you some context, there'll be a section of this presentation to discuss a plan that DHHS currently has proposed to the state legislature to transform, further transform a specialized population within Medicaid. And this specialized plan is termed the Children and Families Specialty Plan. Ourselves, Via Health, along with all the other 6 LME MCOs in the state, have some concerns about that. We wanted to present that before you today and voice some of those concerns. All right. So just to kind of have as a general overview to give you a sense of the geographic footprint of Via Health in our eastern region that includes Person County, Franklin, Granville, and Vance is the regions that I cover. We cover a total of 31 counties, but I am the Community Relations Director and oversee all the operations in those 4 counties. And we have 4 other regional directors that cover the rest of that state, the rest of the regions in the state that you'll see there. I'll kind of go through that quickly. So to give you a picture of how each region is split out by population and leadership, you can see some of the information here. Most of the counties that Via Health covers are very rural counties. The most populated counties, 2 of the most populated are Buncombe and Alamance County. But in Region 4, you'll see that most of those counties are very rural. And that's what Via's specialty is really around rural health. I think in years past, in previous designs, a lot of our rural counties found ourselves competing with some of the resources that wound up getting allocated to more of the urban areas like Mecklenburg and Wake County, particularly with the previous design. I think Mecklenburg was probably the primary competitor, I'll call it. But anyway, in this move towards working with Via, I think you'll find that a lot of what we'll do is much more centric around and sensitive to the challenges that we see in rural North Carolina, which is where I like to work. That's where I've worked for a long time now. So, all right. Just to let you know, so Region 4 is the region that Person County is included in. That's split up in 2 sections as far as leadership. Like I said, Person County, Franklin, Granville, and Vance are counties that I cover, and my counterpart covers the rest. But we are locally governed through that same region that includes the 8 total. Thinking about governance structure on a larger level, our board of directors. So we have the regional governance that we're very appreciative to have Chairman Powell serve on, as well as your health director, Janet Clayton. But this board structure for our board of directors also includes local Person County native, and you guys probably know well Benita Purcell that represents our CFAC. She's also serving on our board of directors. So Person County actually has a fantastic footprint and representation on our board. And I think that is something that we're excited to see how that impacts the way we do business. So just a general composition of how we put together our board. We make sure that there's at least 2 representatives from each of our regional board and our board of directors. We make sure that there's representation from our DSS offices, our public health offices, our providers. We make sure that there's heavy and strong local government presence on those boards. So you'll see that represented in your visuals there. I won't go through all the details. But we're also in the process of appointing 3 non-voting advisory members. We do have good representation right now from public health and DSS, but I think our hospital system needs to be represented on that board. There's a couple of at-large advisory members that our board will be appointing. I won't go through in detail on this slide, but you can see within our Region 4, this is the split out as far as where each of these members are coming from. We do have both DSS and public health representation on Region 4's board. And likewise, you'll see the representation having 4 members allocated for our entire board of directors from Region 4. All right, let's get to some of the specific information. In your packet, you'll have this PowerPoint, obviously, but there's a couple of attachments. The first of which you'll see are Person County Via Health data in Person County. And we were testing this out earlier, and the link on the PowerPoint didn't go straight to the document. So forgive me, I won't put this up as a visual for those behind me, but you guys have that visual in front of you. Since January, we have entered 70 adults in our complex care management program. Those are primarily individuals that are living with severe and persistent mental illness. We have 189 complex care management contacts with those 70 individuals within the first 90 days. That's pretty substantial as far as the frequency of contact. And we have 14 children receiving complex care management in Person County. And within those 14, we have 56 contacts. That's probably the population that we cover that requires the most attention. And I'm sure you guys can understand the degree of and the different departments that wind up touching some of our at-risk youth, whether it be the school system, DSS, law enforcement, juvenile justice. You've got so many different people that are trying to care for and organize services for that population. So that's why we want a heavy presence there for that population in particular. And again, later on, we'll talk specifically about foster care and why some of the localized focus and the importance around making sure that those folks are covered in a very intimate way is I think will be a little bit more clear for you later in the presentation. So this particular document that you'll see in front of you, you'll notice that again, there's 2 zeros around adults and children being served, but next quarter we'll actually have that data to provide you with. That's very general, but we also have an ability to break that down and talk about services provided by service. So whether it's folks going into the emergency department or inpatient psychiatric hospitalization or just basic outpatient, some of that information that we want you guys to be aware of will show, and you can infer actual improvements in the system from. So what we would hope to see is a reduction in ED visits and length of stay for inpatient psychiatric hospitalization. I will tell you, one of the first things that we realized when I took a look back at the previous fiscal year compared to our current is that we've had a 70% increase in ED utilization at Person Memorial, and a 50% reduction in some of the crisis services that we formerly had to counteract that and to meet to kind of curb some of that problem. Pandemic certainly has contributed to that, but we have already developed a network development plan that's going to help solution some of those diversion services so that not everybody, because right now, most everybody that's in a mental health crisis is being channeled to the emergency room. That's the reality of what things are looking like. And Person County is not alone, especially in rural parts of the state, and I would say the country. That's quite popular. So we've got a few ideas around trying to shift. Right now, our only access to a diversion center in Person County lies within resources in Henderson and in Orange County, actually on the southern end of Orange County in Chapel Hill. where a law enforcement officer that wants to take somebody to a diversion center would otherwise have to travel, 55 minutes in some sections of the county to get there. So we want to redesign that so that there's an ease on those law enforcement officers, so they don't have to be traveling and tied up and off the road, because we know that a lot of our counties are struggling with staffing on both ends, law enforcement particularly being one of them. So I didn't come to be a complete downer, I promise. But some of these numbers are pretty concerning, and so we've already started making some plans and some investments to try and curtail some of that. The second document that you'll see, so you'll see this Via Health Person County, by the numbers. You'll see that every quarter. But again, we can walk through and peel back layers so that we can talk about actual outcomes and not just total members served. If you'll kind of continue to travel with me through your packet, the next attachment that you'll see is a document called Promises Made and Promises Kept. I think a few of you were probably courted by VIA early on when we were trying to make sure that counties understood that we were the best selection to go with as far as a health plan for this population. And some commitments were made to all of the counties that decided to come on what those specific improvements would be. So this particular document outlines in the course of 3 months what we've been able to do. So you'll see an entry and then a check mark if we've met it, or not a check mark if it's still in process. So leadership obviously has already been assigned to Person County. That's me. We have a plan on expanding our access to our comprehensive care center. Right now, that's done with Freedom House right down the street here. Their capacity actually has increased very recently. But we recognize that we need to be much more comprehensive in nature on how we provide walk-in services to those that need services quickly. And that we do so not just in a specialized way for behavioral health, but that we do so in an integrated way that includes their physical health as well, to treat the whole person. That's what that term comprehensive care center really means, is that you're comprehensively addressing the needs of that individual. We have committed to hiring embedded care managers within each of our DSS offices. We've done so in Person County. We have a full-time care manager assigned to that office. And we do actually in 7 of our new 9 counties that came over from Cardinal. I will say that we experience the same staffing problems that lots of industries are seeing right now, especially for this population. It is not getting easier to recruit and retain staff to do this work. But anyway, we've got that very localized focus, and we've accomplished that for Person County. We have a single point of assessment model that's kicked off in Person County that streamlines some of the assessing that's done primarily for youth that are at risk, so that hopefully the hope is that they can enter into treatment more efficiently, and that differences of opinion in what a particular person may need is addressed, and that we can work through that a little bit more efficiently and accurately. We have established a full continuum of services for youth that are currently with DSS. That full continuum entails anything from a basic outpatient treatment service through what we call an enhanced benefit services, which would be something like a family preservation model, where that youth may really be at serious risk of disrupting from that home. We need services in the home, not expecting mom or dad or whoever, grandma, to tote them over to an appointment a couple of days a week. They come to them and meet them in their home and in the community. This is a big one for Person County, and it's big in lots of our counties, but mobile crisis management services is an area that I mentioned that has reduced over the last fiscal year by 50% that we want to address. We want those mobile crisis services to be directly embedded with that comprehensive care center. Mobile crisis is the service, and also y'all have a access card and a quick handout. That number on the access card is our 24/7 access line. That puts you in touch with a clinician that can do a risk assessment and kind of make recommendations right there 24 hours a day. If you call Christmas Eve, there's going to be somebody that picks up and helps with that situation. If that individual is in a crisis that requires a mental health professional to respond in the community, that service is called mobile crisis. That service has lots of challenges, staffing being one of them. But the other being that it is, as a standalone, is not sustainable. It needs to be integrated with a care center that can provide that more of a continuum and more of a service array that'll meet their needs. And that is the service that has reduced, that we see an opportunity for in Person County. And furthermore, historically, we've kept that separate from being directly embedded with law enforcement. But what we'd like to do in Person County is to take a look at what we call a co-responder model that puts somebody directly with law enforcement so that they don't have to wait 2 hours for somebody to show up. They can dispatch that individual along with that CCOM, that central communications call. And this is a model that Person County does not know yet. It operates in a few of our counties, but it's something that we're promoting and that we'd like to see roll out. Like I said, we're not there yet. This is our first presentation of the quarter, but you will see a box checked next to providing monthly and quarterly county-specific data. We do that. We'd like to do that with our department heads on a very concentrated level where we crawl through it. And we'd like to do that with you all so that you can see like I said, the general overview. And obviously our board members see that very specific amount of data as well when we have those meetings. So those are some of the county-centric pieces that I wanted to share with you today. And I guess we could wait for questions till the end, but is it all right? Maybe I can just pause if there's any questions about generally before we kind of shift gears into the Children and Family Specialty Plan, which is part of this agenda. I'll give pause if that's at your pleasure. Okay, thank you. I'm doing a lot of talking. I get it. Yes, ma'am.
Are these mobile crisis management centers? I mean, you've used them other places. How successful are they aside from staffing problems that everybody's having in general today?
Sure. I think they're quite successful. In some areas, we've seen around a 20% to 30% reduction almost within the first couple of quarters in implementing it. We're taking a look, the model of that we really kind of hold as the gold standard for our catchment is based out of Buncombe County. And I know that's a relatively an urban county, but it serves a surrounding area. That has been extremely beneficial. That includes, you don't even need an officer to remain with that individual while they're there at the center. They can drop them off, transfer that custody of care if they're under an IVC or something like that, free that officer up immediately. So we could probably pull some very specific data that could show you percentages of reduction. But in general, when you're talking about diversion from an emergency department or hospital.
That area as well as law enforcement.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Yeah. Because right now, if somebody has an IVC order taken out on them, the quickest way for them to access that first evaluation to see if they actually need to be involuntarily committed right now is the hospital, and they're flooded. Our patients don't need to be. Right. Yes, ma'am. All right. Shifting gears a bit. So in your packet, you will see several documents that outline, and I'm not the subject matter expert of the genesis of this specialty plan and how it came to be, so I won't pretend to be. But we know how we provide care. We know some of the regional approaches that we've taken to have a more localized model. And we also know what kind of timeline we're on to transition within Medicaid transformation to an integrated health plan, which is December of this year. We will start covering not just behavioral health care, but behavioral health care and physical health care and pharmacy benefits, as well as non-emergent medical transportation. It's called a tailored plan, is the wave of the future that's coming. So within that transformation, within the state's plan to transform how Medicaid is done, One of the areas that is being suggested in the here and now is not localizing a plan, not regionalizing a plan, but creating a statewide plan for our youth and families that are in the foster care system. I will say this, there are lots of things that we absolutely agree about this plan. Specialized care management, the integrated health portion of it, we absolutely agree with. But ourselves, as well as the other 5 LME-MCOs in the state, have been opposed to the statewide model that's being proposed. And we've been opposed to the timeline of when this is supposed to roll out. Just to give you guys an outline of what that timeline is, the proposed RFP that would be released is supposed to be finalized at the end of this month. The actual policy paper that outlines this whole plan was released in mid-February, on February 18th. So this is not an ideal way to address these concerns. It's very reactive, and it creates a difficult kind of position for us to work collaboratively with those partners that we're used to working so collaboratively with. So I wanted to put this in front of you, and I'll go ahead and get essentially to the meat of it. What we would like to entertain and would like to present for your consideration would be taking this information, reading through it and trying to understand it, but also, supporting some of these concerns that we have. We've gained support from many of our counties to delay the process so that we can partner with the state and say, you know what, we need to find out if this is the way it's going to be. We need to be much more methodical about what the impact is going to be to our population, what the impact is going to be to our local providers that are used to partnering and contracting with us, what the impact is going to be to our membership that's used to partnering and receiving care management services. And we need to better understand what the overall impact on the solvency of this localized model is if this statewide plan comes to fruition. So what ultimately I'd like for you guys to think about is a position around that. What we have done and what just got sent to our Deputy Secretary, Dave Richard, on Friday was a letter from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners endorsing the delay of this plan. Our provider network organizations have endorsed the delay of this plan. And individual counties within our catchment have already endorsed the delay of this plan. Vance County being the most recent one earlier this month, which is a county that we serve. So I'll just outline for you some of the general points of concern. Number one, like I've said, we kind of pride ourselves, and I think we're getting better at it, on incentivizing actual workforce to be in our communities. That has to be done in very close partnership with local entities, right? Your local healthcare providers, you have to have a very good sense on local infrastructure and how to incentivize staff to come out and work. That's what it boils down to. You can change how you authorize care, how you manage care. It boils down to actual people that are willing to deliver the service. And that's where we want to focus. So that's a big concern around a statewide plan. The concern around the timeline is that one of the state's intentions is for our tailored plans to be considered as a potential operator of this statewide plan. But within this timeline that would essentially approve the vendor being the end of this year and the RFP being released in June, we do not feel that LME-MCOs would have adequate time to prepare for and apply and buy for that type of opportunity. That our concern would be that it would more heavily be geared towards our larger privatized private insurance companies. Not to badmouth any of them, but they're the larger commercial plans that up until this point haven't offered the same level of care to this very high cost, very complex population that we serve and have served for many years. So the timeline is a big concern. I outlined a couple of these concerns already around the care management shifts, and there's already so much disruption that our members experience with staffing coming in and out, care managers in the same respect, but we at least want to make sure that we retain that ability so that there's not further disruption. I will say that some of the ideas that are put forth around strengths of doing a statewide plan, especially from our Association of County DSS offices, is streamlining processes so that people don't get caught up in delayed access to care. We don't want to create more bumps in the road when somebody's waiting on an authorization for a particular level of care. We want to be able to streamline that. We feel like we can do that as a regional model just as well as any other statewide plan would be able to come in and change their processes. Those are just processes. That is not the primary benefit of what we would see in retaining this regional plan. So my point being is there's a lot of things that we actually agree with, but wanted to be clear about where we differ. We do feel like that there's no standard one size fits all for this population. Like I said, you're working with very local dynamics, different unemployment rates, different levels of disruption and custody that happen within local DSS offices. Our hope is that we would build a close enough partnership so that we could be very dynamic in how we support each county at a time, one at a time. Just to reacclimate a little bit to this presentation, you'll see some of the initial slides outline a presentation that was presented by DHHS. So some of these are just very objective points around what this plan would entail. And the eligible population, one of the things that really put a lot of gas to this that we were responding to and reacting to is the expansion of the population to be covered now would include not just the youth that would be in custody or in foster care, but would also be at-risk youth, their family members, and siblings, their caregivers and siblings. And like I said, we don't disagree with that approach at all, but the impact on volume and the reduction in membership that would cause for our current structure, we feel like would destabilize the system and further complicate things for the state as a whole. And I won't crawl through some of these. Most of this I wanted you to have as reference that are in your slide, but I'll end my presentation there and ask for consideration for obviously just receiving the report, but also consideration around our concerns for this particular statewide plan. And I'll be quiet. I've talked a lot. Thank you for listening.
You may have talked a lot, but you haven't talked too much on the subject that we're talking about here.
Thank you.
Just like so many other things, if you aren't involved in some way and you don't know what's going on with this population, you really aren't aware of the great need, and the local need is what I'm talking about. With experience with Cardinal and now Via, and we are going through a transition, and there'll be some growing pains or new approaches, but we're doing the right thing for a very needy population. And Person County per capita has its needs as well, probably more than average for its population. And I think we would fail our citizens if we fail to see their needs and fail to do everything possible to assist them during times of great need. To me, the situation has always been response time and as soon as quickly as possible, because when there is an incident with mental illness in particular, we need immediate response. We don't need to submit a plan and 7 days later, try to do something for that individual. We do need a quick response time, and a diversion center probably would be needed as much in Person County as any other county, again, based on population and need. I am not in favor of a statewide plan. I haven't talked to other board members about that, but with my experience, again, with the needy population over the past several years, I see a statewide plan as being, maybe in my terms, big government. It's hard for a statewide plan to pay attention to individualized needs on an immediate basis. So if we could keep that within the county, keep our autonomy to be able to deal with those individuals, to work with the professionals in the field, hospital, law enforcement, or whomever it may be, I think it's a much better plan to have that done on an individualized county basis and not a statewide. So I'm certainly in favor of the letter that's proposed to Mr. Richards. And so I'll leave my comments at that.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Please, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the decentralization of the process is key, a key component. We don't need to have a centralized, Grand Poopah in Raleigh or whatever, running the show locally because they don't know what happens locally on the ground. So I'm all in favor of supporting the delay and hopefully getting rid of it, totally adjusting it. If there's enough people that say this is not going to work for us. So I would support that.
I think I would
Go
add,
ahead.
there's a lot of room for improvement. I don't think that this, our DSS offices will tell you, and our providers will tell you, this population begs innovation.
Mhm.
These families can't wait for interventions. A lot of times it's too late. And so we got a lot of work to do, but it is something that we'll do in our own backyard.
Well, I agree with you. We have to adjust as we go along. But as you know, in our very first meeting with VIA, my concern was to have someone in our DSS office to work with those that needed immediate service. And I think we're about there, maybe.
There's a full-time staff that's allocated to that
Okay.
office. And I think 2 days a week, full days a week, they're actually
And that's
assigned
good.
to them.
And it's not the DSS is doing anything wrong. It's a closer connection with not only the rules and regulations and everything involving state government, but the personalized service that's there. So I appreciate that effort.
Absolutely.
Okay, commissioners? Questions?
Thank you.
Good. Yes.
Suggestion. In my experience, sometimes a letter like the one in your agenda materials to be addressed to the Secretary of Health and Human Services has more persuasive effect if it says on its face that it is sent with the strong consensus of the governing body. Two of the commissioners have spoken. If there is a consensus of the board, it might be well to offer a motion to authorize and request the chairman to send that letter.
To approve a letter of support to DHS concerning what we discussed today.
Have a motion, further discussion? None? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None motion carried.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Look forward to working with you.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
Item number 5 on the agenda is interim county manager placement through the assistance of the NC Association of County Commissioners. As previously stated in our meetings, all of you know that we are entering into a thought process about hiring a new county manager. And we want to make sure that we do that thoroughly, properly, above board and transparent. And I've asked for assistance from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners to begin helping us in the process of selecting a interim county manager. So we have 2 representatives from our organization here today, and I guess you guys flip a coin and see who wants to speak first. Kevin Leonard, thank you so much for coming today under the weather conditions, but the weather might be bad, but always remember, everything's better in person.
It is indeed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We flipped a coin and I got the first go at this. Members of the board, thank you all so much for having us up to discuss this with you. The chairman, as he said, had talked to me a couple of times about the process of hiring an interim and further than that, the process of hiring a new county manager. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, before I get to that, if I could have a moment of personal privilege just to cover a couple of things, I will not prolong it too long, but I was very interested in your agenda today. Everything on your agenda, the association is working on, including this past topic matter, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But I wanted to start by telling you I don't have a law degree, but being in Person County, I think I'm reconsidering that, given the history of hiring former executive directors of state associations. So I'm going to get my law degree, and it's good to see my friend Ellis. And I really wanted to tell you thank you for letting us, the association, borrow Ron Aycock for a little while. Over the past 2 years, as he sat in the seat that Mr. Hankins sits in, he was a part of our 555 committee on the opioid settlement. And his leadership and you letting us borrow him and some of that time created one of the best outcomes in the entire nation as it relates to the opioid lawsuit settlements. Over $750 million coming to North Carolina, 85% of that going to our local communities. There is no other agreement like that in the United States. That's a pretty big deal. And I just wanted to say thanks and extend that in front of you. I know Ron's not here. I know he would have missed me saying that, but I wanted to tell y'all what a great job that he did. On the VIA thing, we did issue a letter last Wednesday on that particular subject. It's a very complex matter that you just heard about, but after a lot of conversations at the departmental level with Mr. Richards and with our members, I issued a letter last Wednesday requesting that the secretary delay the implementation and consideration for that statewide plan that you just heard about. So I sent that letter not only to the secretary, but to the oversight committee. We were in oversight last Tuesday, hearing the presentation on that subject matter. I was there with some of my colleagues. And after that presentation, we issued that letter. So I'll keep you updated. You'll hear from us occasionally about that. ARP funds. I heard y'all mention ARP funds earlier. You may be aware that your association received $10 million to provide technical assistance to Person County and the other 99 counties. With those dollars that we received, we're establishing a new division called the Strategic Member Services Division. And we are able to help you and other counties working through the guidance related, because it's complex with U.S. Treasury guidance. But the thing that what I call the head fake of the program is we are hiring MPA graduates in volume. We're going to hire perhaps up to 25 MPA graduates to help basically be project coordinators, project managers, to give your staff an extra set of helping hands, working on projects that you're going to use your ARP funds for. Why I call it a head fake is because we're going to invest our money in the future workforce. Hopefully one day Person County or the other 99 counties will hire them up as a future county manager or future finance officer or assistant county manager, department heads. We know that there's a workforce shortage in public service, in county government. So we're using our opportunity here to help build that future workforce in county government. Makes one of the things in North Carolina really unique. And now I'll transition to the subject matter at hand. But you may not understand have the perspective that you, because we're so close to it in North Carolina, the LGC, the Local Government Commission, the School of Government, all of these things were created in the 1930s when there was major reforms after the Depression. North Carolina is one of the only states, and Mr. Hankins can back me up on this, where you have the council manager form of government. And imagine in other states where you're in charge of everything and you don't have a professional manager. That exists in a lot of other states. So North Carolina has invested, and we are investing as your association in forwarding that, training local officials, training your professional administrators. So wanted to mention that. One of the many things that your association does is step in and help. And I think, Mr. Powell, Chairman Powell and I did discuss this over the phone, but he asked us to come up and present. And I think in the realm of making sure that there's transparency here about what we can offer to you in terms of assistance. I know this is a bittersweet thing, but it's always good to see managers grow their careers and move on. Congratulations, Ms. York. It's one of the most biggest and important decisions a board can make is hiring a new manager. Perhaps it's a once in a lifetime event for a board. So the association, and I'm joined by my colleague, Neil Emery. I call him a former recovering county manager. He is retired with 30 years as a county manager in multiple counties across the state. He's been with our association for 16 years, and this is what he does. He helps counties through this process. So I'll let Neil get into the nuts and bolts here in a moment. But the most important title that Neil has right now is new grandfather. He has a grandbaby. You can talk about that when you come up to the podium. Yeah. He brought pictures to show everybody. But what we can do, and there's really two steps. So what we're going to talk about with you today is interim. While you are making a decision, and I understand perhaps y'all either have contemplated or have issued an RFP for a search firm and are going that path. The association can help you at any step of the way. What we would do in the interim process is we can collect names. Neil has a list that he keeps rolling in his head of former county managers from across the state in the region that can step in and help you along the way. I'll ask Neil to come on up and talk about that process, but in general, we would provide those names and the resumes to you, and then it would be a board process. We can help you. Neil can specifically help you and talk about the individuals. We can make the contacts for the individuals. Neil, you want to go a little bit further on that? Probably I stole all his thunder. As a good executive director.
That's right. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. As Kevin said, I was a manager for 30 years, and my first job was Caswell County. And I lived in Zamora, and my wife taught at South Elementary. So I learned a lot about Person County, and a lot of good years here when we lived in that community. But as regards to manager, we talked about interim, and I spoke with your chairman and shared this with him. I think the key here is the first step for the board is to provide leadership. You're going through a major transition as it relates to your department heads, to your employees, and you want to make that transition and show them that there is a structured process by which you're going through. You've done that, I think, with issuing RFP for professional services, but that also plays into the interim position. So I would encourage you, one, to develop a schedule of when you want to accomplish certain tasks and move forward with that. Heidi, as the professional she is, she's giving you time in that transition, but I think having a schedule in regards to the interim, our normal process is we do keep a list of potential candidates. We share those with what I have done in the past. Again, the process would reflect how we can help you best. But in past counties, what I do is provide a list of names. Here they are. And then I say, would you like for me to reach out to these people and ask, would they be interested? Now, I will tell you, a lot of these names, they may be involved with another county, another unit of government. They may be taking a break, because there's one caveat in this. If you want to pursue a manager, they can only work so many hours in a year due to retirement restrictions. So how you fit within that, that's another reason this calendar is so important, of knowing how much time do you need them for, and having a calendar, because that's one of the first questions they'll ask me. Well, Neil, I've only got so many hours, or here, how much time do they need me for? So that's why it's important to try to start planning out how you want to move forward in this process. But again, we would reach out to these possible candidates at your request and ask, would you be interested in talking with the board? We encourage, it's not a formal process, but it's more of, if they are, and if you're interested in them, I would provide you their resume, and then we defer to the county to contact them and arrange how you might want the process to move forward. Some counties may have the full board may interview them to see, are they a fit? Others may defer to a committee within the board. But all that said, that is up to this board how you want to do that. It's not a formal hire. This is not for a permanent position. It's just for a few months. You will find most of them on a contract. With your attorney, you can develop that. They want a monthly contract. I would encourage you to go into this process being flexible. There's a reason they retired. They want some flexibility in their work schedule. Now, they're committed public servants, and they're going to give you their all once they get on the scene. But they may want to say, hey, guys, can I come in X time on Monday and work 10 hours a day, and Friday, I might need some Fridays off. I don't know what that may look like, but be flexible with it. Some may want a stipend to stay here in the community during the week and travel on weekends home. Some may be able to commute and ask about mileage. I just say, keep all those things open in your mind. Don't tie yourself down in parameters going in. But there are a lot of great professionals out there who truly do love. And I kid them. I say, why do you like managing interim? They said, I can really tell them what I think. as after I retired, my last job was in Harnett County. And after I retired, I was on a committee or some group in the community about something. One of the school board members looked at me and said, Neil, you sure do have a lot more opinions now than you used to after you retire. But it is a wonderful, you hate to lose a manager, but it is an opportunity for someone with fresh eyes to come in and look, and they can tell you their perception of things as a professional. And so that can be a good experience for the board. So I would say go into it as a good growing experience for the board as well, and utilize them, because they're going to bring a wealth of knowledge to the table. So that's sort of how we do it. That's how we help, but we want to help in the way you want us to help. You are our member. We want to, but that's my thoughts is, again, provide that leadership to staff, show them the stability of the county and that you're moving forward in a definite manner. And here's the plan. Second, identify candidates and decide as a board the calendar you want to move forward and incur in their services. I will tell you, some boards worry about overlap between the current manager. If they're a professional manager, they know where Heidi is. They can call her. You don't need a lot of overlap, because managers are managers, and they know county government, and they know how it's a professional courtesy. If they need her, she'll reach out and discuss those things. Maybe a few days, but not very long. I've seen counties talk about having a month's overlap. That doesn't. People want to know who they work for then. Do I work for the interim? Do I work for the manager? So I just point that out. And So that's, and then the stability of it, the calendar, the schedule, being flexible, being open to the, that most of them are, it's a reasonable contract amount. The limited hours they have basically 1,000 hours they can work per year. So that lets you run in your head how long they can be with you. I've had someone be the interim 6 months and just keep going. You can be an interim 6. No, I can't. Retirement doesn't allow me. And they will want to know that sort of what your schedule is. I'll stop there, answer any questions or turn it back to Kevin, but that's sort of the parameters of what we do and how we help.
I would just emphasize the one thing that Neil said about the schedule. Schedule is pretty important, and what your time frame is, how long you want the interim to be on staff before you make a final decision. I would keep that in mind. And then just to underscore 2 final things. One is we are here for you. So whatever the process that you want to do, you let us know and we'll do that for you, like Neil said. That's all I'll say about that, but whatever you want, that's why we're here. And the last thing I wanted to say at the podium was thank you for your public service. Your association understands the toll it takes when you put your name on the ballot and you serve the public, and you don't get a lot of thank you cards and notes, but we want to tell you thank you for what you do, because it really matters and it makes a difference in your community and in your county. And thanks for having us here. Mr. Chairman, we're happy to answer any questions.
Questions, anyone? I will say I appreciate you guys coming, and I think we're moving along with this process. We do have time, so we're not going to rush it. That was the objective in the beginning. So we'll gather this information, and I'm sure Madam Clerk has made note of all your points. Plus, we will communicate with other board members to see what additional points they would like to have put on paper during this process, and we move along with that. And so if there are other comments, anyone at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask the manager if she'd had laid out a preliminary schedule.
We have a schedule loosely defined in the RFP that we issued. RFPs or responses to the request that we sent out are due back today at 4:30. And then we intended to provide a matrix to you of the candidates, give you a list of what those look like and how many we have. And then we planned on doing interviews. I think it's May 6th, your next board meeting. I'll double check the date on that real quick. During the day, you have an evening meeting that day. And then from there, we could issue a contract if the board is able to decide on a particular firm. We could issue a contract by that week. So I'll send that out to you again, but it is contained in the request for proposals document.
He's for I'm talking about, he was mentioning the schedule for the interim.
Right, it's 2 different things.
2 different
Okay.
things. So the process of, because I can't imagine anybody on the board wouldn't want to have a good streamlined process that we can agree to. And I don't know how much you've got invested in doing a preliminary one at this point in time. So if you've got something to share with us that we can talk about now or talk about soon.
I don't have, once we're able to decide on the firm that you're going to be hiring, they basically come in and do sort of a turnkey process for the hiring and the filling of the position. So they will develop a schedule with us based on the board's needs for how quickly you want to move forward in that process.
But that's I'm talking about the interim position.
Right. Did you want to say something, Ellis, or do you want me to keep going about?
Are we talking about the same thing? Are we talking about A and B? Because I'm looking at an interim and a permanent position. So my question was, while we're doing this over here,
Right.
what is the interim? So is the board, what is the process for us? They have done a presentation.
Gotcha.
In my mind, and I just want clarification because I've never done this before.
Right.
The next step yes, get us a list of candidates, let us talk to them.
Sure.
And the time frame on how we're going to do that.
Right.
We have a window of a few months, but we don't want to waste time.
Sure.
We need somebody in here and get them up to speed
Sure.
because they're they're the bridge, the transition from
That's
where you,
right.
where you exit and somebody else comes in.
Right.
So that's what my concern is right now, immediately getting that
Gotcha.
process
Yeah,
rolling.
so I think Kevin will address that.
Mr. Gentry, I would make a recommendation to the board that we stand ready to provide the board with a list of possible names for the interim. As soon as you ask us, we can provide that to you and get that information. We'll work through the chair, if that's okay, and give that to the chair. And then y'all can take it from there. If the chair and the board wishes us to, as Neil suggested, contact a couple of the folks on the list that you want to talk to, we can happily do that for you.
Okay, so
The
do we?
only thing that helps is knowing what date you need them available.
Right, that's,
And I can work backwards from my, I'll just work backwards from my last day and give you all a sort of a schedule / calendar where you can start figuring out when you would like the interim to start.
do we need a formal motion for this process?
I think, go ahead.
I think you do not necessarily need a motion now. Your chairman, on behalf of the board, has had very productive discussions, I know, with Kevin and other members of your association staff. They've been very responsive. They've told you what they're able and willing to do. Neil's brother, by the way, is a retired city manager, so it's kind of a family business, both highly respected in the public management profession. You all certainly are capable of doing two things at once. They are two separate but closely related things. The process which you all initiated and your staff carried out, got right on to draft an RFP and get it out there. And the interviews, the time for the interviews is scheduled, as the county manager said, May 2nd. So I suspect you will have several firms to choose from. In the meantime, you all certainly can be evaluating the probably mostly retired county managers who may be available to serve as the interim county manager. I said in the previous meeting, your county manager has given you plenty of advance notice. And so you have the luxury of time. There's no need to rush through either one of those two things, the selection of a consulting firm to help you with the search for the next county manager on one hand, and your selection and appointment of the interim county manager. The interim county manager just needs to be able to start work sometime in June. But those discussions, end of June. So you have plenty of time. You can conduct those interviews if you wish with one or more of the candidates for the interim county manager position in a closed session, so that you can have an open discussion of qualifications, capabilities, and what you want and need during that interim period. In the meantime, you will have selected the search firm. And one of the first, I can tell you from my experience, one of the first things, as Heidi said, that your consultants, your selected consultants will do is discuss with you a proposed timeline for the search and get your agreement, the board's agreement to that timeline, get it written down, agreed upon, so everybody knows the schedule, including the interim county manager. And then stick to that timeline. So that's the process.
Okay, we're all clear. So you'll communicate, get us that, and I'll communicate with Manager York and the rest of the board. Again, no rush, but get our ducks in a row, move forward.
And I'll send a proposed schedule to the board so we
Right.
have some
That
idea
will
of what we're
include
looking
the
for.
schedule.
So I expect an email will come from you and or Gordon regarding the process.
Yes.
Okay.
We will follow up with you soon with some names and we'll take it from there and take your lead.
That'll be good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Leonard,
Thank you, members.
Mr. Emery.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the grandchild. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, and I know how to raise grandchildren. Let them do what they want to do. So yeah, thank you both very much. Item number 6 on the agenda is to request to adopt a resolution for grant funding and to authorize county staff to support the Western Sewer Project. City Manager Lockhart, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Board of Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. Very simple matter in front of you. There is availability of funds per unit of government for water and wastewater infrastructure, specifically only for water and wastewater infrastructure. And we're requesting that you allow, that you support a resolution and allow your staff to also complete paperwork towards an application, which would be applied to the Western Sewer System, which we've talked quite a bit about. I also have brought with me my Public Services Director, Andy Oakley, also resident engineer, if there are any specific questions.
I don't know about questions, but I can only speak for myself. I'm not speaking for the board, but this is something that I think we fully support. I fully support, I'll say. And going back probably 2 budgets ago, I made a motion to support your engineering fees for that project. And I believe in it. It's what we need. There are lots of things on the table related to this project, and with growth and expansion in Person County that we cannot do without. We can't grow without it. And the sooner the better. Tomorrow would be okay. But I do think it's a very viable project for the future of not only the city of Roxborough, but the county as well as a whole. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with this resolution. Comments from other commissioners?
Chairman, I would like to add that the leadership of this board and the city board has put us in a position to be able to take advantage of these funds. If it wasn't for earlier investment in the engineering design, and if we're in right-of-way acquisition as we speak, we're uniquely positioned. The city is also putting forward an application. I left that part out. So thank you for your leadership in the past and hopefully continued support.
Well, it's a joint effort between the city and the county, and does give great evidence of us working together, and it's all about the citizens of Person County in the future. Comments, commissioners?
Chairman, I'd like
Yes,
to make
please.
a motion to accept a resolution to contribute the funds to the Western Sewer Project in conjunction with the city.
We do have a motion to accept the proposal. Further comments?
For these funds from the state, we're eligible for up to $15 million. The money then would be held here, transferred to the city for their project, which they would be managing. And I also wanted to remind you that you have approved an additional $1 million within your CIP, also going toward this very expensive project. So it has definitely become a team effort to help move the project forward. And this is one additional funding source that can be applied for to help support it. So we wanted to submit that application on the county's behalf.
Good. Commissioners? Hearing none, we do have a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your patience being here this morning. And item number 7 on the agenda is NC Beaver Management Assistance Program. Ms. McCormick.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners. I'm Nancy McCormick. I'm here today on behalf of the Person, Soil, and Water Conservation District. Beaver Topics comes to us as our board on an annual basis, regular basis. We see the issue. So I'm here on their behalf to request the county to participate in the North Carolina Beaver Management Assistance Program, also known as BMAP. And this program is designed to help manage beavers that actually cause problems. They're not there to alleviate beavers, it's only to manage beavers that cause a problem with our natural resources, such as flooding, damage to pond dams and such. I sent you some information in your packet. I'll just go through some quick key points in there. The cost of the program is $6,000. The county, if they agree to participate, you will designate a liaison and sign a written agreement with the North Carolina Wildlife Services. That liaison collects the requests and then forwards them to the Wildlife Services specialist, who will contact the landowner for a free initial consultation. And then the cost share rate that the landowners receive is a $25 per visit with up to 15 visits a year. They also get charged $125 per dam removal with a 30-day guarantee. They also provide free technical assistance, guidance, and hands-on training for those who wish to address the problem themselves. So if the landowner doesn't want to pay for the services, they will come out and teach them, educate them on how to do it themselves. As we all know, beavers are an important part of our ecosystem. Again, this program is designed to manage the damage that beavers cause, not to eradicate their population. However, it is against the law to relocate beavers. So unfortunately, some lethal techniques are used to do this when non-lethal methods are not feasible. The most common method is trapping. With that being said, they do minimize detrimental effect on other wildlife. If other wildlife happens to get caught in the traps, they do, try to do their best to keep that from happening or release those that do happen. Beaver dams are typically removed by hand. In some situations, they can be removed with explosives. And all management efforts are conducted according to relevant laws, regulations, policies, etc. So another key point: for every dollar that is spent in the BMAP program, $5.82 in resources is saved. So this is an economical benefit for the county. As I have stated, we do see a need. People come to our office all the time asking us, can you help with beavers? We have beavers, that's flooding our fields. We also have general citizens and landowners who may have a creek in their backyard. Hey, the beavers have built a dam, it's flooding my yard. What can I do? And, we don't right now have a program to help them. So this would allow us to help the citizens in that direction. A letter of intent is due by May 1st if the county intends to participate in the program. The program will actually begin on July 1st, and the $6,000 cost is due on July 31st. So again, I'm here on behalf of the district board to ask the county to pay to participate in this program, and our staff is willing and ready to act as the liaison for the program. Any questions?
Go ahead. But I do know that I had a situation similar with near my house with the beavers, and it wasn't necessarily going into my yard, but it was flooding. It was causing flooding over the road. And I think after several phone calls, and it took a while, but finally the department, NCDOT, came out and with a front end loader and actually dug out where the dam was at. And then, of course, it opened up the water. The beavers are still there. I mean, but they have not caused that issue since then. But it is, and I know that's a personal experience. I've had that situation. So, and they can be a problem for sure.
Well, hopefully, and if the county does elect to have this program, it will help ease the transition and, it will actually provide a contact in the county of where people can call and start, call us. So we're eager for y'all to approve this so that we can help get that word out.
I think it's a very good laid out plan to protect both entities here. Would this be an annual request?
It is. It is.
And
annual.
that would come from, at this point, where would you get those funds?
Approve this, we'll put it in your recommended budget. It will be in the soil and water departmental budget for $6,000.
Okay. Commissioner questions? Do I have a motion regarding to this request?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to do the $6,000 participation fee for the Beaver Management Assistance Program.
Okay. A motion on the floor, further discussion? Yes.
Second part of that motion is to designate the Person Soil and Water Conservation District Office to act as the liaison.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you.
That's what you said, isn't it?
Location program.
Well, no.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you all. Okay, Chairman's report. I only maybe have one question. We have watched for quite some time now the opioid settlement. And I did read something maybe last week about funding that would be coming to Person County. Would that be in this calendar year?
I don't think we have a date of receipt. We know that it has to be
did it say
spent.
Fall of 22 or?
That's what they're aiming
spring?
for
Okay.
in terms
Do
of
you
sending out.
recall the amount of money there
Do you, Ellis?
for that first? Okay.
Like we have been officially informed. of
We
that.
haven't received an official
Right.
award letter. We
Well, I
have,
saw a number, but I know it's not official. That's okay. Now, who is formulating plans for use of that money? and
the money
how?
is severely restricted for use.
yes.
So it will be probably a committee set up with the health department in particular. Freedom House, of course, it's, of course, restricted for substance abuse and use prevention. But we will have a committee that can help develop projects. And I think we have 7 years before those funds would start to expire.
Do you think maybe any of that money could be used for the diversion center that was mentioned?
I can certainly
in
look
some
into
way?
that.
Okay. That's all of my report. Managers report.
I think I mentioned during the discussion about the boardroom renovations for down here, but your next 2 meetings in May will be held upstairs in your boardroom because this is an early voting polling place. So wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. And I also would mention related to the Peg Carlson discussion that we did not have a contract with her. It was simply a phone call to see if she would work with us at our board retreat. And then she held some individual meetings with you all, but we did not have any sort of formal proposal. There was no charge for her time, and we did not have any sort of report that was issued that I would have access to.
Size was for what?
Well, we had engaged her to see if she would do a session at your board retreat, and then she decided that that was not going to be fruitful for her. So she did not. After she met with you all, that was sort of the end of it.
We weren't worth it.
I don't think that was it.
Yeah, I
just
think it was.
What we were wanting her to do, I think she felt like it probably wasn't a good fit. So. That's all I had, Chairman.
That's it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sims?
Good to see Mr. Seep here today. Haven't seen him in a while. In response to a couple of his comments, first of all, I felt like we were listening to, in his public comments, a campaign speech for two candidates. So I'm sure everyone has that right to do that. And it gave him an opportunity to say those things that he was saying. And I'm bullying. If you're asking questions or disagreeing with another county commissioner on an issue, is that bullying? I disagree with that. And I'm not sure where he came up with his bullying information. And in my opinion, if you're threatening this board, we're requesting public records to get an answer, which you just given, Heidi. To me, that's bullying. So at any rate, again, I appreciate the public comments. And that's all I got.
Commissioner Palmer?
I would like to end this meeting on a very positive note. I've been watching the grounds crew maintenance. Is Ray here? He's gone. Well, he can hear this later. I've been watching you guys work around the Huck Sandsbury Park complex up here. And of course, I live 2 blocks east of here. I've been watching this playground or picnic area. The bushes are just, the trees and the bushes, there's several more trees, bushes. They finally got it cleaned up, and I am so thankful. It looks beautiful now. They have mulch to go back in there. I want to commend the grounds crew. And as usual, I want to commend the whole entire staff for the Person County government and the employees that work for our county.
Commissioner Gentry?
No report at this time, sir.
Commissioner Perrier?
No report, sir.
Well, you enjoy the post-Easter break or holidays if you have one. Do we have a motion to adjourn? A motion to adjourn, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Thank you all.